Maybe he shouldn't have stopped. That thought would haunt him later in the quiet moments when the world was asleep and the hum of the fridge was the only sound in the room. Maybe if he had kept driving, kept his head down, kept his promise to himself to never step out of line again, he would still have a job. He would still have a paycheck. He would still be able to bring home a warm dinner instead of day-old bread for his daughter. But then again, maybe some choices choose you. Rain pounded the cracked windshield of his old pickup as he drove home from the late shift, his hands aching, his mind heavy with unpaid bills and a daughter's birthday wish he couldn't afford. He saw the ambulance on the side of the road, lights off, steam hissing from under the hood, a young EMT pacing in the rain with panic in her eyes. A part of him screamed to keep going, to protect what little he had left, to think of the consequences. But there was a sound that pierced the storm, a faint, pained gasp from inside the ambulance, a sound that reached into a father's heart. Picture a soaked man in a cheap jacket, stepping into the rain, his boots sinking into mud as he approached the ambulance, his breath mixing with the cold mist, his hands moving without thinking as he lifted the hood. Steam burned his skin, but he didn't stop. He found the broken belt, the cracked hose, the loose clamp that could mean the difference between life and death for whoever was inside. His hands, stained with grease and rain, worked quickly, the rain washing the grime down his arms, dripping from his chin as he fought to keep the engine alive. And then, with a roar, the ambulance came back to life. The young EMT yelled thank you as she rushed back to the driver's seat, the flashing lights turning on, the siren piercing the night as the ambulance sped off into the storm, carrying away a life he would never know. He stood there for a moment, breathless, soaked, heart pounding, not knowing that in that moment he had changed everything. He returned to work the next morning, tired but relieved, thinking he had done the right thing, thinking the world would understand. But the world did not. His boss was waiting, arms crossed, eyes cold. "You abandoned your post," the boss said. "You left without permission." And just like that, a slip of paper was placed in his hand, a single line that tore through the hope in his chest. Terminated. As he walked out of the shop, pink slip trembling in his hand, rain beginning to fall again, he wondered if doing the right thing was worth losing everything. He wondered how he would explain this to his daughter, how he would pay for the rent, for the lights, for the bread. He wondered if the world had room for men who still stopped to help, even when it cost them everything. But here's the truth. The patient he saved that night wasn't just anyone. The woman inside that ambulance was someone who would change his life forever. She was the CEO of one of the biggest car companies in the country, a woman who had spent her life building engines and saving empires. And in that moment of weakness, she had been saved by a single dad who had nothing left to give. And what she did next? You won't believe what happened. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. We love seeing where our story family is joining us from. His name was Daniel Hayes, 42 years old, mechanic by trade, single dad by life's cruel twist. He wore the same gray coveralls every day, patched at the knees, stained with years of oil and hard work, sleeves rolled up to reveal arms built from lifting engines, not weights. His hands told his story better than his mouth ever could, with calluses that cracked each winter, scars from slipping wrenches, and a burn mark near his wrist where a radiator cap exploded once. He lived in a two-room apartment above a laundromat, the scent of detergent always in the air, the rumble of dryers shaking the thin floor late into the night. In the corner of that small space was a bed with faded pink sheets where his daughter, Lily, would curl up with her stuffed rabbit while waiting for him to come home. She was 7 with eyes too big for her small face, eyes that had learned too early how to watch the world for danger, how to wait for footsteps in the hallway before allowing herself to sleep. Every morning, Daniel would braid Lily's hair before school, even though his thick fingers struggled with the tiny bands. He would leave her lunch on the counter, peanut butter sandwiches, and a note with a smiley face. She would look at him and ask, "Daddy, will you be home tonight?" And he would smile, even when he didn't know the answer. Daniel wasn't the kind of man who asked for much. All he wanted was a fair chance to work, to keep the lights on, to see Lily smile when he picked her up from school, even if it meant working double shifts, even if it meant his back screamed with pain each night. He kept old coffee cans on the counter filled with coins, counting them quietly to see if he could afford Lily's favorite strawberry cake for her next birthday. But the day he stopped to help the ambulance, all of that shattered. The next morning, the boss, Mr. Cray, met him at the gate holding the pink slip like it was a sword. "You left without authorization," Mr. Cray said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You think you're a hero? You think your personal choices matter more than this company's rules?" The men Daniel worked with looked away, pretending to tighten bolts, pretending to sweep, pretending they didn't hear, because they knew what it meant to be on Mr. Cray's bad side. Daniel tried to explain that there was a patient inside, that the ambulance wouldn't start, that he could fix it, that someone might have died if he hadn't acted. But Mr. Cray didn't care. "Rules are rules," he repeated, throwing the pink slip at Daniel's chest. "Get out." He packed up his few tools, the wrenches he bought secondhand, the small flashlight Lily liked to play with, the pair of gloves with holes in the fingertips. As he walked away, the shop doors slammed shut behind him, echoing like a final sentence on his worth. Picture him standing on the sidewalk outside the shop, rain dripping from the brim of his cap, the slip of paper in his hand turning soft from the water, his reflection staring back at him in the puddle. A man who had nothing left but his choice to help, a choice that cost him everything. He went home that day, walking past the bakery where he used to buy Lily a small cupcake on Fridays. He looked through the glass, saw the rows of cakes, and turned away, empty-handed. Lily greeted him at the door, her hair falling from the braid, her rabbit in hand. "Daddy, did you bring the cake?" she asked, and he knelt down, forcing a smile, and hugged her tight, whispering, "Next time, baby, next time." That night he lay on the couch, Lily's small body curled up beside him, her rabbit squeezed between them. His mind raced, trying to figure out how to pay the rent, how to keep the lights on, how to buy her shoes that didn't have holes. He closed his eyes, the pink slip still in his pocket, digging into his side, a reminder that sometimes doing the right thing feels like the wrong choice. But here's the truth. As he lay there in the dark, thinking the world had turned its back on him, a woman in a hospital bed was waking up, asking for the man who saved her life. She wasn't just anyone. She was the CEO of a car company, a woman who had spent her life building engines, negotiating deals, and leading thousands. And in that moment, she realized that her life was saved by a single dad who had risked everything just to help a stranger. And she decided she would find him, because what she did next would change his life forever. Her name was Evelyn Ross, 51 years old, CEO of Orion Motors. People said she was cold, ruthless, the kind of woman who could break a room with a single word. They didn't know she had once slept in the back of a rusted-out sedan with her mother, the two of them huddled under one blanket in a truck stop parking lot. They didn't know she had worked through college while taking care of her younger brother, who didn't make it past his 21st birthday. They didn't know that power was the only thing that kept the fear away. When she woke up in that hospital bed, the beeping machines around her, the oxygen in her nose, she remembered the rain on the ambulance windows, the jolting start of the engine, the rough voice saying, "Try it now." She remembered the feeling of the vehicle surging forward, the sirens cutting through the storm, the cold fading from her hands as she clung to consciousness. She asked the young EMT, still trembling with exhaustion, "Who fixed the engine?" The girl blinked, confused, and said, "Some guy in the rain, ma'am. He just showed up. Didn't even say his name." Evelyn's hand curled around the blanket. "Find him," she whispered. She didn't know why it mattered so much. Maybe because she knew what it was like to be invisible, to be the person no one thanked. Maybe because when death brushed past her, it was a stranger who pulled her back. For the next few days, she had her assistant run down every detail. They checked the dash cam of the ambulance. They found a blurry image. A tall man soaked in rain, dark hair plastered to his forehead, hands moving quickly under the hood, the glow of the engine lighting up the storm around him. They enhanced it, printed it, and she kept it on her desk, staring at it between meetings, between boardroom fights, between signing contracts worth millions. She didn't know his name, but she knew he mattered. Meanwhile, Daniel was learning how quickly the world could forget you. His savings drained faster than he expected, eaten by the rent, the electric bill, the half-empty fridge. He tried to get work at other garages, but Mr. Cray's word followed him. Unreliable. Walked off the job. Can't be trusted. No one wanted to take a risk on a man who had stepped out of line, even if it was to save a life. Lily didn't understand why her daddy was home so much. At first it was a gift. More time for bedtime stories, more mornings with braided hair and pancakes. But the pancakes were getting thinner, the syrup watered down to make it last. She saw the worry in his eyes, the way he looked at the mailbox like it might bite him, the way he rubbed his temples when he thought she wasn't looking. One afternoon, Daniel tried to fix a neighbor's old car for a few dollars. Crouched on the gravel, tools spread around him, the hot sun burning the back of his neck. Lily sat on the steps, holding her rabbit, watching him work. She asked, "Daddy, are we okay?" And he paused, wiping sweat from his brow, looking into her eyes, and he forced a smile he didn't feel. "We're okay, baby, we're okay." But they weren't okay. The landlord knocked on the door that evening, hat in hand, saying the words that made Daniel's stomach drop. "Dan, I like you, but I can't keep waiting. I've got bills too." The notice went up on the door, pink like the slip from the garage, a color that began to haunt him. Evelyn's assistant finally tracked down the shop where the man worked. A call was made. Mr. Cray was only too happy to complain about the hero who cost him a day's productivity. "You know what's wrong with people like him?" Mr. Cray ranted. "They think the rules don't apply just because they want to play hero." Evelyn's hand tightened on the phone. "Did you even ask why he did it?" she said, her voice like ice. Mr. Cray stuttered. "Ma'am, with respect, he broke company rules." She ended the call without another word. She told her driver to take her to the address Mr. Cray provided, a small apartment above a laundromat, the kind of place that smelled like detergent and wet concrete. She stood on the sidewalk looking up at the window where a small lamp glowed. She saw a man's shadow cross the room, pause, and then disappear. She climbed the stairs, her expensive shoes tapping on the worn steps, the air thick with heat and the scent of drying clothes. She knocked. Daniel opened the door surprised, Lily peeking from behind him, clutching her rabbit. Evelyn saw the lines on his face, the worry in his eyes, the strength in the way he shielded the child behind him without thinking. She saw the mechanic from the photo, but she also saw a father, a man trying to hold together a world that kept falling apart. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice calm, "I believe you saved my life." He blinked, confusion and caution fighting in his eyes. "I'm sorry, I don't—" "The ambulance," she continued. "You fixed it. That was me inside." His shoulders sagged, a weight he didn't know he was carrying lifting for a moment. But the fear returned quickly. "Ma'am, I'm glad you're okay, but I can't help you now." His eyes darted to Lily, to the boxes packed in the corner, to the notice on the door behind her shoulder. She looked around the small apartment, the cracked floor tiles, the dishes drying on the counter, the tiny shoes by the door. "I'm not here to take anything from you," she said softly. "I'm here to thank you." He swallowed, looking away, his jaw tightening. "Thanks don't pay the rent," he muttered. She took a deep breath. "I know. That's why I'm offering you a job." He looked up, startled, hope flickering and dying in his eyes in the same breath. "What kind of job?" Evelyn looked at him, seeing the man who didn't hesitate to help, the man who risked everything for a stranger. "I want you to come work for me at Orion Motors," she said. "I need someone who understands engines, who understands people, who doesn't look away when things get hard." He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Ma'am, I'm just a mechanic. I don't belong in a place like that." She stepped forward, lowering her voice. "Mr. Hayes, I built that company from nothing. I've spent my life around men in suits who don't know what it means to get their hands dirty. You belong there more than half the people who work for me." And then she told him what she discovered. The designs he had drawn years ago for a more fuel-efficient engine, the sketches he left behind at a previous shop, the ones they had dismissed as foolish dreams. She found them in a patent application under someone else's name, a man who made millions while Daniel struggled to buy bread. Picture the moment as he sank into the chair, his daughter crawling into his lap, the weight of years pressing down on him as the truth settled in. He had been right. His ideas mattered. His work mattered. He mattered. But it wasn't over. Evelyn promised to fight for him, to reclaim what was stolen, to give him the credit he deserved. She promised him a chance to build a better life for Lily, to show her that doing the right thing might cost you everything in the moment. But in the end, kindness comes back in ways you can't imagine. And as she left that small apartment, the rain began to fall again. But this time it felt different. It felt like a cleansing, a promise, a whisper that the story wasn't over. Because what came next would change everything for Daniel and Lily. The doors of Orion Motors opened with a soft hiss as Daniel stepped inside, Lily's small hand gripping his. The lobby smelled like coffee and fresh leather, sunlight pouring through towering glass windows, illuminating polished floors that seemed to reflect a different life, a different world from the cracked sidewalks he had walked only days before. He wore his cleanest shirt, the one with the loose button he had sewn back on himself, and Lily wore her best dress, the one with the tiny yellow flowers she loved so much. She clutched her rabbit, looking up in wide-eyed wonder as they stepped through the metal detectors, as people in suits glanced at them with confusion, curiosity, and something else he couldn't quite name. Evelyn was waiting at the end of the hallway, a quiet smile on her face. She wasn't the CEO people whispered about, the ice queen who never bent, never broke. She was the woman who had come to his door, who saw him when the world turned away. She bent down to Lily's level, her eyes soft. "You must be Lily," she said, and Lily nodded, holding her rabbit tighter. They walked together through the engineering wing, the air filled with the scent of metal and machine oil, the sounds of drills and hammers and engines testing on stands. It was a place Daniel understood, a place where the world made sense, where effort meant progress, where hard work left marks you could see and feel. Evelyn led him to a workbench, cluttered with engine parts, sketches pinned to the wall above it, and in the center, carefully laid out, were his designs. The same lines he drew on scrap paper years ago, the same ideas that kept him awake at night, the same dreams he thought were foolish. "These are yours," she said softly, her hand resting on the papers. He picked up one of the sketches, tracing the lines with calloused fingers, his breath catching. "How?" he whispered, the word breaking in his throat. "I told you I would fight for you," she replied. "The man who stole these is gone now. The patent is yours. Your name will be on every engine that comes off our new line. We want you here, Daniel. We need you." For the first time in years, he felt seen, really seen. Not as a man who just turned wrenches, but as someone whose ideas mattered, whose work had value beyond the paycheck, whose courage to do the right thing had led him here. Picture him standing there, Lily holding his hand, her small face tilted up to him with pride, the hum of machines around them, the soft glow of light on the designs that now bore his name. For a moment, the fear lifted, replaced by something warmer, something that felt like hope. Evelyn extended her hand. "Will you work with us, Daniel? Will you help us build engines that matter?" He looked down at Lily, who nodded with a shy smile, her eyes bright. He took Evelyn's hand, his grip firm, the grease stains on his fingers pressing against her polished skin. "Yes," he said, "I will." They walked out of the workshop that day, the future stretching before them like a road freshly paved, the weight of the past still there but no longer crushing. For the first time, he could see a tomorrow where Lily wouldn't have to be afraid, where birthday cakes wouldn't be a luxury, where lights stayed on, and dreams didn't have to be hidden in drawers. But as they stepped into the sunlight, Evelyn turned to him, her eyes serious. "Daniel, this is only the beginning. There will be people who will try to stop us, people who will say, 'You don't belong here.'" He nodded, a quiet strength in his gaze. "Let them try." Because he knew now that kindness had power, that courage had consequences, but sometimes Those consequences could open doors you never imagined. That helping someone, even when it cost you everything, was never a mistake. And as they left the building, Lily skipping beside him, her rabbit swinging in her hand, Daniel looked up at the sky, the clouds parting, the light shining through, and he knew. Their story was just beginning. Sometimes the world breaks you down so many times that you begin to believe you deserve it, that you are small, that you are invisible, that your kindness is weakness, that helping others is foolish because no one will help you back. But here's the truth. Kindness matters. Courage matters. Doing the right thing, even when no one is watching, even when it costs you everything, matters. Daniel learned that when he stepped into the rain that night, hands trembling, heart pounding, saving a stranger he didn't know. A stranger who turned out to be the key to changing his life forever. A stranger who saw him when the world looked away. He didn't know that helping someone would mean getting a second chance, that his small act of kindness would echo into something bigger than he ever imagined, that his daughter would one day look at him and say, "Daddy, I'm proud of you," with tears in her eyes. Picture a small kitchen, the scent of warm bread in the air, a little girl laughing as she twirls in a dress that finally fits, a father watching her with quiet pride, the weight on his shoulders lighter than it's been in years. Picture a man standing tall in a workshop, his name on the designs pinned to the wall, his hands steady as he teaches younger mechanics how to fix an engine, how to see problems as possibilities, how to keep going when everything tells you to stop. Picture hope, because this is what happens when we don't give up. When we choose to help, even when we're tired, even when we're scared, when we choose to believe that kindness can build a bridge where there once was none. Daniel and Lily's story is a reminder that you are not alone, that you too are part of this story family we're building together. A family that believes in courage, in second chances, in the power of doing what's right, no matter the cost. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the strength inside you, if it made you believe that your kindness matters, then share it with someone who needs hope today. Let them know they are seen. Let them know they are not alone. And if you want to keep walking with us through stories of courage, kindness, and second chances, subscribe and join our story family. Because together we can keep these stories alive. We can remind each other that even in a world that feels heavy, there is still light. Stay with me, because next we'll uncover another Hidden Heroes journey. And maybe, just maybe, it will be yours.